Hi, I'm Jody. I'm a producer on the design team here at Stripe. In case anyone's unfamiliar, Stripe builds tools and infrastructure for starting, running, and growing a business online. I'm going to talk to you a bit about some of the tools and infrastructure that we use on the design team within a rapidly growing company like Stripe. So our team's fairly similar to most in-house design teams in that our ultimate goal is to create beautiful work that does the right things for the right people, is fun, interesting, and efficient to use. So we work on a variety of type of things to accomplish this goal, from our web and mobile products to our marketing site, our brand, voice, videos, and even printed publications. So this one might look familiar if you've looked inside your swag bags tonight. But we're fairly atypical in a few ways. One is the incredibly fast rate that Stripe is growing. So in the last year alone, the company has grown by about 300 people. And on the design team, we've grown from 6 to 15 in the last year. And we're expected to be around 35 by the end of next year. Another way we're a bit atypical is that Stripe is both an international and an incredibly cross-functional and collaborative company. So this map here is showing our 9+ offices worldwide and doesn't even account for the many Stripes that we have working remotely everywhere in between. So that combination means that we really need to employ a lot of strategies to maintain visibility into our work, and to make sure that we're providing means for any Stripe anywhere to be able to contribute their opinions and expertise. So all of this is great and makes working at Stripe really exciting, but it does create some interesting challenges as we try to scale in a way that allows us to continue to produce good work, but also involves the diverse perspectives across the organization. So some questions we asked as we started to think about this. One, how do you scale up team capacity and increase diversity in skill sets and backgrounds? And then as we do grow and more work starts flowing through the team, how do we maintain that visibility into our work and incorporate the different perspectives to ensure that we're producing good and well-rounded work? And then how do we maintain the spirit of collaboration and knowledge sharing in a way that challenges and pushes our work forward? So because we knew the challenges that lay ahead of us, and because we know that we're not the only design team out there who's ever thought about any of this stuff, we kicked off the year with a little bit of a design team roadshow where we went around and just talked to other teams and to see how they kind of approach some of these issues. So I won't go into the nitty-gritty here, but this is just a high-level overview of some of the things we learned about other teams' operations. Of course, every team has its own unique set of challenges, but it was really fun to trade some tips and tricks and compare and contrast some things that have worked for other teams who are going through similar growing pains. So a few tools and tactics that we've been experimenting with. First, around growing the team. So it was really tempting to start recruiting as soon as we got headcount on the team. But our first step was really to identify the skill sets that we thought we needed. So at an end-of-year offsite we had back in December, we conducted a Skillset Survey where we asked ourselves, what kind of work and how much of it do we anticipate doing in the next year? Where do we think we're strong as a team, and where do we think we're lacking? This Post-it note, I think, is one of 4 giant sticky Post-it notes that we filled out. I know it's not the prettiest thing to look at, so I spared you the details of the other ones. But the results of the exercise is that we went from having 1 job rec of designer to 9 different job recs, including 2 new disciplines altogether, copywriting and research. So identifying this wider range of skill sets was really our first step in making sure that we're building out a well-rounded team. But we also want to make sure we're reaching outside of our own networks so that we aren't just hiring more of ourselves. So we had some fun hosting sourcing parties where we invited people from all over the company into one big room, and we brought snacks and drinks, and we scoured through our contact lists, and it's kind of a simple way just to make sure referrals are coming outside of the design team as well. We found that having a well-established framework was a really important tool in our hiring efforts. So we worked as a team to create a framework that defines the same set of questions that we ask every single candidate, as well as a rubric that we can use to evaluate answers against. This is really helpful in, one, aligning on capabilities that we think are important in every candidate. Two, more importantly, mitigating against some unconscious biases that can sometimes creep their way into the interviewing process. So next, some tools that we use to maintain visibility into our work and allowing spaces for open collaboration. So this is our wall. This is where every designer prints out work in progress and pins it. It might seem like a simple practice, but we found it to be an indispensable part of the way that we open up feedback and inclusion to the larger company. It creates a casual setting for anyone to chat about work in progress, for anyone who may be less vocal or maybe isn't directly involved on a specific project. It's also a nice way to showcase our involvement in the company and the diverse amount of work that we work on, and it's kind of a subtle way of encouraging design team collaboration in the future. So one really important thing to note here is that in order to make this work, we realized we need to make it super clear that the intent of the wall is not to be a museum of pristine work that with perfect masonry layout. Its intent is instead highly functional. And so there's a general understanding that work here is in progress and open for discussion and is constantly rotating. And as I mentioned, we're also a very international company, so not everyone is walking by our wall every day. So we also use Wake, which is essentially a digital version of our wall with the same guidelines. And then we also pipe everything that goes into Wake into Slack, which is where most of the company is. We also consider our physical space to be a tool. So this is our design pod. We use the work table that you see here and the TV in the background for impromptu meetings or reviews. It's just another way of inviting all stripes into our creative workspace. So lastly, a few things we've done to make sure that we're challenging and pushing our work forward. So the growing team and increased amount of work we take on has created the need to bring a little bit more structure into the way we review and learn from each other. So we've had weekly hour-long design reviews for a while, since the team was probably 5 or 6, where we go around the room and designers share work in progress and we get feedback. It's always been a nice way of bringing the entire team together and for general awareness of what everyone's working on. But as the room's grown bigger, we found it harder to get through everything and to make sure that everyone's voice was heard and that people felt comfortable sharing their opinion. So we've also started baking critiques into our process, which I'm sure you're familiar, are more focused reviews with a smaller room. We also make sure that the room has a diverse group of designers in it. So for example, someone who maybe typically works on brand or our videos will be in a product design critique where we're looking at the nitty-gritty UX of a new settings feature in our dashboard product. So we found these really important in helping us, one, make sure that we're getting people with different perspectives thinking about the same problems we're trying to solve, and two, that we're being rigorous and intentional in our design decisions by dedicating focus time to each design. There we go. Oh, I went too far. So you guys didn't see that. So the last thing we've gotten in the habit of doing is having these mini workshops hosted by different members of the team. It's a nice way to learn from each other, and sometimes about things that aren't directly tied to our everyday work at Stripe. So here's Ben. He's teaching us about CSS grids. Here's the rest of us trying to understand Ben teaching us about CSS grids. Just kidding, we totally got it. Here's Everett teaching us the mechanics of screen printing. So yeah, those are just a fun way to highlight some unique skill sets and backgrounds on the team. So that's it. That's just a quick summary of some of the tools that we've been using on the team to combat some of these scaling issues. We love talking about this stuff. So any ideas, questions, or feedback, I'm Jody at Stripe, and I'd love to chat. Thanks.